Hi, I'm Dave Halsing. I'm the project manager for the South Bay Salt Pond Restoration Project. The restoration project began in 2003 when over 15,000 acres of former salt production ponds were acquired from the Cargill Company. It was a combination of sale and donation. At that time, there was a several years long effort to create a restoration program to establish a vision for the project and a decision system, sort of figuring out how different kinds of restoration and habitat enhancement actions would go on, where they would take place, what kinds of public access features and flood control measures we could implement in different places. So it's been 19 years. We're actually beginning to think now about our 20th anniversary celebration sometime next year. Our project on its own is 15,000 acres. People tend to see the Bay Area from their neighborhood or their ground level, or they see a section of the bay as they drive over it on a bridge. But if you look at a map or Google Earth or something like that, and you see how much of the South Bay is current or former salt production ponds and how much of it is now being restored to natural habitat, it is striking. It is bigger than many of the cities in the Bay Area. We are under construction at 3 or 4 different locations of the second phase of the restoration project right now. Phase 1 was completed in 2014. We began planning phase 2 in 2012. And we've gone through a number of environmental clearance and permitting and design and modeling and fundraising, and we're now building. We may stop after phase 2. We may do a third phase. A lot of what might go on in the coming years might be collaborations with outside entities that are doing similar projects that overlap spatially with ours, working with the Army Corps of Engineers or the Santa Clara Valley Water District, San Francisco Creek Joint Powers Authority. All of these entities have projects that involve flood management and public access and habitat restoration. And since we share geography and goals and purpose, we're trying to sort of interweave those efforts. And I imagine our phase 3 will look a lot like that. 85 to 95% of the bay's original tidal wetlands were lost or destroyed for subdivisions, for shipping channels, for wastewater treatment plants, for salt production ponds. And so a lot of that habitat is gone. These are endangered species that use these habitats. They have a right to an existence too. So there's this natural reason to do it, but there's also the human reason to do it, which is that these natural areas are a public access amenity, right? These trails, these viewing areas, these open spaces like we have here, these are ways for people to get out and enjoy things at no cost in their backyard. There's a deeper level to it too, which is that these tidal marshes absorb high tides and wave energy, wave runup. So they are in fact a kind of flood protection. They buffer human communities from the effects of sea level rise and storm surge. They absorb carbon dioxide from the air, so they actually help to slightly reduce the risk of climate change in the future. So there's some very selfish reasons, I should say, right, that we should care about restoring these things. All of our highways, our airports, our wastewater treatment plants, these things tend to be on the shores of the bay. Having these marshes and these sort of complex natural open space areas between the bay and them offers them a lot of protection. We want to do as much tidal marsh restoration as we can for all of those reasons I just mentioned. But we can't take all of those 15,000 acres and make them tidal marsh because in the 150 years that salt production went on in the Bay Area, a number of different wildlife species became somewhat dependent on having access to the pond habitat that was there. So we are setting aside and enhancing some of those ponded areas for that kind of wildlife too. And so as quickly as we can, we want to make those decisions. We want to restore the marshes ideally before mid-century, which is when all of the models say the rate of sea level rise increase will go up. So we want to get as much of that done as soon as we can so that we're ahead of the sea level rise curve. And doing that involves a number of things. We have to make sure that when we open up these old ponds to the tidal flows, we're not increasing the flood risk to the human communities behind them. So we have to work with the local flood protection districts and with the landowners to build up and enhance some of the old salt pond levees that are between the ponds and the communities, raise those and improve those, and then we can advance with the rest of the work. I hope we get it done. I hope that we're able to make good decisions about the combination of marsh and pond habitats, that we're able to get ahead of sea level rise curve and get these habitats in place before that happens. I hope we're able to understand and fully address the very complicated interactions between coastal flooding and sort of high tide sea level rise, and also, when it rains, that water has to come out the creeks and stormwater channels, and it's going to come down into a higher bay than it has been. So I'm hoping we can understand how to manage those problems better and achieve something that continues to serve people and communities in all those sort of selfish ways that I said before, while also providing the kinds of high value habitats that existed before development and that some wildlife has become dependent on since.